In 1867, Claude Monet applied for permission to paint in the Louvre Museum. Painting copies of old master works in the museum was common practice for 19th century French artists. However, being granted permission to paint in the museum, Monet set up his easel outside on a balcony overlooking the city of Paris. From the Louvre balcony, Monet painted several works, including Garden of the Princess. In turning away from the museum, Monet was also rejecting a specific philosophy of representing nature that could be found in paintings in the Louvre. Nicolas Poussin is one of the greatest landscape painters in the history of French art. His painting, entitled Summer, in the collection of the Louvre, depicts the biblical narrative of Ruth being granted permission by Boaz to glean from his land. Our interest here is in Poussin's treatment of nature. Although this event from the Old Testament happened in Bethlehem, Poussin's landscape looks more like Italy. This highlights the fact that the landscape in this painting is Poussin's own invention. This is not a depiction of any specific place. Based on his study of landscape in France and Italy, Poussin has imagined Bethlehem. In his invention of an idealized landscape, Poussin has improved upon nature. Nature in this painting submits to a classical sense of order. Poussin's imposition of human design onto organic nature represented an approach towards landscape painting, and even an attitude towards thinking about the world that Monet meant to reinvent. Garden of the Princess evidences Monet's commitment to painting in the outdoors, or en plein air. In the 1860s, Monet methodically explored what it meant for an artist to paint landscape that was directly in front of him. In Wood Gatherers at the Edge of the Forest, Monet selected a subject and a point of view that enabled him to find a composition for his painting within the structure of nature. This method of painting deliberately brought to the forefront the relationship between the moment of observing nature and the process of creating an illusion of that subject in art. In Garden of the Princess, Monet further complicated this relationship between the perception of a subject and its depiction in painting by selecting a motif, the city of Paris, which had its own complex and controversial structure. In Poussin's work, the artist took organic nature and imposed a human conception of order. Wood Gatherers attempts to depict nature as Monet found it. However, as a public park in the city of Paris, this garden was an area of nature which had already been given architectural design. This park is surrounded by streets that also have their own design. In Monet's painting, there is a sense of how the energy of urban life is straining against this structure. In his selection of an urban motif and his painterly treatment of that subject, Monet was exploring plein air painting as a modern method. In 1863, Charles Baudelaire published an essay entitled "The Painter of Modern Life." Baudelaire urged artists to take as their primary subjects motifs from life around them. Although Baudelaire died in 1867, the same year that Monet painted Garden of the Princess, Baudelaire's proposition was foundational to Monet's method. From the Louvre, Monet painted this work looking towards the southwest. Although our view of the Seine is obstructed, we are looking across the river. In the distance, we can see the dome of the Pantheon. To the 21st century viewer, Monet's painting may seem like a picturesque, even romantically nostalgic view of Paris. However, his contemporary viewers would have recognized this work as a vision of a modern city. In the preceding decades, Paris had undergone an extensive transformation. In 1840, the year that Monet was born in Paris, the city was still in many ways a medieval city. Paris was a labyrinth of narrow cobblestone streets and a skyline marked by Gothic cathedrals. In the 1850s and 1860s, Paris experienced an urban reinvention that was both beautiful and brutal. At the direction of Baron Georges Haussmann, this maze of dark streets was transformed into wide boulevards that filled with light. However, to create new plazas and parks, entire communities were evicted and neighborhoods demolished. Haussmann's controversial restructuring of Paris would have likely been on the mind of Monet's contemporary viewer. For an artist committed to the problem of how to reconcile the observation of nature and the painting of that subject, the city of Paris provided a special challenge and opportunity. Garden of the Princess addresses the question, what is the painting of modern life? Certainly Monet's paintings of parks and boulevards represented a significant break from the historical and exotic motifs popular in the official Paris salon. However, restricting our consideration of this painting's modernity to only its subject reduces the art to a sort of documentation or illustration of the modern world. Monet demonstrated that being a modern painter was more than simply depicting modern subjects. Modernity in painting was a matter of perception. Monet's work examined how the structures of the modern metropolis shaped human experience and identity. In Garden of the Princess, we can see how the city was not only being industrialized, it was being redesigned as a machine. Paris was being redesigned as a mechanism for moving people from one place to another with greater efficiency and order. In this painting, the traffic of the horse-drawn carriages going in countless directions is contrasted against the carefully designed and cultivated park in the foreground. There is a calculated juxtaposition of artificial nature and urban reality. This modern painting not only depicted one of several new public parks, there was also a correspondence between the organization of the city and the composition of the painting. Monet's method flattened his picture's pictorial space. Garden of the Princess depicted Paris as a vertical crowding of buildings, with little discernible space between these forms. It is possible that Monet's contemporary viewer recognized this as a visualization of the restructuring of the modern urban experience. Monet's high vantage point from the balcony of the Louvre enabled him to flatten the painting's pictorial space. This allowed Monet, as a modern painter, to emphasize the actual flatness of his canvas. Monet's commitment to plein air painting directly in the presence of his motif was foundational to his being a painter of modern life. Garden of the Princess demonstrates that the painting of modern life was not confined to the selection of the subject. The painting's modernity was embedded in the very method and structure by which the motif was depicted. As a result of his carefully developed method, Claude Monet's paintings were themselves an experience of modernity for the viewer. His paintings provided the self-aware viewer with an opportunity to critically examine their own relationship to modernity. The viewer could then apply what they discovered in their contact with the work of art to their daily practice of living in the modern world.